Say it now. Say the obvious prediction right now.
The Stars are going to win the Stanley Cup.
Hey guys, welcome back to Starcast Remarks. Alongside my brothers Chris and James, my name is Ryan, and alongside my Mountain Dew, and alongside James's Mountain Dew, and dang it, Chris. Sorry, I completely set him up for that on purpose. Sorry. I still love you, Chris. You're muted, bud. We can't hear you.
Baja Blast.
Okay. Anyways, guys, welcome to the show. This is going to be the Stars versus Avalanche series previews here today. We're going to get a couple of thoughts on to get everything wrapped up in that series against the Vegas Golden Knights. We're going to have a little bit of reaction to some of the comments from Mark Stone and also from Bruce Cassidy a little bit. There's some interesting things that need to be said there. Excuse me. And we'll also get into this series that just like that. It's crazy how fast the playoffs can be, especially when your series goes to 7. So anyways, first off, guys, it's been about 24 hours, maybe a little bit less, like 23 and a half, whatever. How are y'all? What are y'all's emotions now that you've kind of calmed down a little bit from that game 7?
Yeah, my voice hurts. I'm very glad that we won, because we won the advanced analytics in 6 of the 7 games. And looking back at the stats, which I would have done if we lost, I would have tried to figure out why did we lose. I would have been severely upset to find that we shouldn't have lost. So it's a good thing we scraped it out for my own mental sanity.
Yeah, and I don't think shouldn't have lost would have been the right way to put it, honestly. It would have been a lot of individual plays from the Vegas Golden Knights, lots of blocked shots. Aiden Hill and Thompson both stood on their head at different points throughout that series.
So one of my most exciting things about this series was just it literally could have gone either way. It literally could have gone either way. And I mean, imagine this. Imagine that Wyatt Johnston hits the post and it goes the opposite way and they score a goal. Does that change the complexion of that game? Does it change the complexion of the series even for the rest of that time. I mean, it shoulda, coulda, woulda. I mean, in some universe that happens, but thank goodness in our universe it did not happen. So, anyways, what I want to get from Chris, especially right now, since he wasn't here in our episode last night, talking specifically about the game, just give me your overall thoughts from the game, Chris. And we talked about a lot of the positive things. We talked about Wyatt Johnston. We talked about Robertson, Ben, Tanev, the whole defensive core, Otter. And then we also talked about some of the negatives with this past series and the fact, the big one for us, especially in the game, Chris, which I'm sure it was a talking point for you, was Nils Lundqvist. And then the fact that we had some big players in this lineup who, despite us winning the series, didn't even score a real goal. In Rope Hintz and Joe Pavelski and Matt Duchene, I would also put him in that category a little bit too. So I know that's a lot to kind of talk about, but can you maybe pick and choose a couple of those things and give me your thoughts on those?
Yeah, for sure. I was surprised listening to some media this morning and throughout the day that everyone was talking about all the missed chances that Vegas had. I was
The
like,
Stars
all
had
the
it
chances
too.
that Vegas had, the Stars had twice as many that they missed. And I mean, that's kind of the way it goes. The team that loses is the one that they're going to say, oh, they had so many opportunities. Stars had twice as many as Vegas had that they whiffed on. And that was also a huge part of this series too, is that the Stars weren't able to execute. And that's either due to good positioning from Vegas and getting sticks right in time to stop stuff, or like James was saying, some outstanding goaltending too. I think a lot of it was the Stars just didn't bury stuff. And I think if you can figure out how to get your top guys back on track and get them confident again and burying those chances, especially on a weaker defense and a very weak goalie, I mean, who knows? Maybe that's the thing that your team needs to propel itself into these playoffs.
So the one, oh, that is so weird, Harrison. I swear you were reading my mind here. Okay, this was something I wanted to bring up with both of you before we move on. Harrison, the hockey guy, criticized the coverage of the series in his review last night. He found it to be extremely pro Golden Knights. So that, I thought that was interesting too. And that's something I'm a member of, like probably 6 or 7 different Stars group chats across social media, including our own Discord, which, by the way, go and join the Discord. And that was one of the big things I talked about, because a lot of people watch Shannon stuff on YouTube because he is extremely logical and thoughtful in his stuff. And I'm not just saying that because he's a Stars fan. But like, I had never seen him talk like this about any broadcast period. He actually said he turned off the TNT coverage, watched it on TV, and listened to the radio broadcast of Razor and Josh, and thought that they were less biased towards the Stars than the national broadcast was towards the Vegas Golden Knights. So I wanted to get y'all's thoughts on that. James, I'm not sure which broadcast you watch. Chris, I know you didn't watch the broadcast at all. So I think that I would be curious to know your thoughts, both of y'all's thoughts on this.
I was very happy with how I watched the Bally feed, by the way. Okay. I tried that TNT feed. I think it was game like 3 or 4. Never again. Okay. Not doing that ever again. But the Bally feed for the Stars in that game 7 was spectacular. I mean, even after the second period, they talked about really the story of the game after whoever wins is going to be the missed opportunities in the second period. And that's exactly what the whole thing has been about since then. Like Chris said, they're talking about Vegas's missed opportunities in that game. I mean, they called it, and they called it for both sides too.
Yeah. I'm upset that we're going to have to watch national broadcasting after this round, but
especially against the Avs.
Especially against the Avs, because if you thought that they were rooting for Vegas, boy, howdy, you just wait. So, but
and
honestly,
if you make it through, if in the next round, it's not going to get better either, because you're getting a Canadian team.
Yeah, then you're probably getting Edmonton if I had to guess.
So no matter what happens, the Stars can't win.
And you know what? Good. I mean, our goalie likes to play villain. I'm shocked that this team, with how many veteran players without a cup on it is not a fan favorite, but if it's not, fine. We'll be a villain. We'll go ruin everything. That's pretty fun too. I mean, we don't got to be the fan favorite.
Well, see, the thing is, I was thinking about that, what you said, Chris. Really, the only fan base that I can see that would really be behind us is San Jose. Because San Jose, they're rooting for Joe Pavelski. You have to think they're rooting for Joe Pavelski because he deserved that cup back in 2016. He absolutely deserved it and didn't get it then. With Suter, they hate him in Minnesota now. They absolutely hate him in Minnesota now, and for obvious reasons because of the thing he did against Kaprizov, which it was kind of crappy. He probably shouldn't have done that, but what's bygones is bygones. And then I guess the other one, and nobody likes Jamie Benn except for Stars fans. Let's be honest. No one likes Jamie Benn. And he's like one of those, he's like Brad Marchand. Like, you hate Brad Marchand with every ounce of your being, but if he's on your team, you love him. Yeah. Like, if he was a Dallas Star, I would love him to death. Can you imagine having Marchand and Jamie Benn on the same line?
That's
oh
terrifying.
My goodness. Let's make it even worse. Let's have those two guys and Tom Wilson to it. Make it a line that can actually score and be jerks at the same time. Okay. Anyways, I just thought that, especially him, Shannon, the hockey guy, saying that about a national broadcast feed when he is almost always very not trying to take a side or whatever. I just thought that was very interesting, and I thought I would bring it up. And unfortunately, Game 7 in the first round is the last time we will see the Bally Sports feed. Not because we like Bally Sports, but because we like Jocelyn Razor. And now, I've never done it before, but I think I'm actually going to try and sync the ticket with the TNT broadcaster, ABC broadcaster, whatever it is. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes there. But okay, anything else before we wrap that up in a bow real quick? Anything that we need to talk about? Oh, the comments. Did y'all get a chance to see Mark Stone's comments and Bruce Cassidy's comments?
I did not, actually.
Okay. So long story short, and I'll wrap it up pretty quick because there's like a 6-minute video with Mark Stone. There's like an 8-minute video with Bruce Cassidy. But a lot of the stuff that Bruce Cassidy talked about was injuries. And you know what? That's fair. I'll be honest. That's fair. He said numerous times that there were 9 people who had surgeries and a couple of them were internal or whatever. And I was like, at the same time, we're dealing with injuries too, and they might not be at the same level or the same severity. But if you're a good team, good teams find a way to win. And the Stars were able to do that despite not having Marchment for the final 5 games of the series and Foxa for 4 out of the 7 games. So
and we're playing with 5 defensemen.
And Hakanpää is the way bigger deal there.
Yes. And then Hakanpää is, Lundqvist is absolutely a handicap right now for the Stars, which really sucks.
So your guys had a lot of surgery, but hey, they were good enough to play. Ours aren't. So
yeah. So the other comments that they said was, and Mark Stone was kind of honest about it too. He was like, we could have won a couple more games and not had to play Dallas in the first round. And, they were probably not very excited to play us in the first round either. And shoot, I was not. I was hacked off among all feelings about that. But hearing some of that stuff, they seemed a little dismissive, a little bit, of the Stars' win. And I know there were a lot of people that were upset about the comments that both of those guys made. But the thing was, I thought some of them I did not like. But to be honest, it was a extremely even series. I know that the advanced analytics say that the Stars should have won 6 out of those 7 games. But some of those, that's just hockey sometimes. Sometimes you get stupid lucky bounces like the Stars did, and where it bounced off of Dellandrea, and Dellandrea scored a goal with his body. And then you get a lucky goal with Foxa in the first minute of the third period in a game 7 that puts you up 2-1. So I don't know. But hearing some of the things that I talked about and maybe some of the things that you're seeing over in the chat over here, what's your reaction to some of their comments that they have had?
My reaction is they won a cup. That's kind of why they're more dismissive. So go win a cup and you can make those comments.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say on the even side of it, I mean, this was even as a series you could get. Both teams scored 16 goals. Both teams had about 27 or 28 shots on goal every game. Both teams' power play was a little over 20%. Vegas was 25, Dallas was 21. I mean, it's all just dead even. And for them being dismissive, whatever. Okay, I don't care. Stars beat them. They beat the team who won it all last year. And guess what? Now they have to do it to the team who did it the year before.
Oh, geez.
How many teams have done that, by the way? Beat the previous 2 Stanley Cup winners in the first 2 rounds.
That would be quite insane. I don't know the answer to that. So, okay, guys, let's move on. Let's move on from the comments. Let's move on into this series. We're about 16 minutes in. We got to talk about it. All right. Dallas and Colorado. Let's kind of set the stage here for everybody here. This is going to be a really interesting series because there's lots of different rabbit holes that you could jump down. You could talk about the season series between the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche, right? And the fact that the Stars were completely dominated by the Avalanche in the 3 or 4 games that they played, right? And in a couple of them, the Stars had, multi-goal leads. And one point, they had a 3-0 lead and lost 6-3. They had another opportunity. They were up 4-2, and they lost in overtime. And the thing is Colorado was very good about doing that, and they did that multiple times. The flip side of that is the fact that a lot of these games were on the second night of a back-to-back for the Dallas Stars, right? So you could argue that and say, okay, well, the Stars were tired. They were not able to play their best, right? Coming into this series, the Stars are going to be completely wiped. They're going to be exhausted, and they're up against a team in the Avalanche who, let's be honest, Alexander Georgiev, he fixed whatever was going on with him, or the team in front of him fixed around whatever was going on around him. And after giving up the first game, it looked like that Winnipeg was going to win the series. They rattled off 4 straight and beat them in 5. So the Avalanche are on a very good extended period of time where they were able to get break and rest whatever bruises or injuries they had. Stars have not been able to do that. So coming into this series, you could look at that correlation between the two and be like, okay, well, is this yes, this could be seen as a disadvantage for the Dallas Stars because they're tired. But at the same time, they had to do these exact same kind of things during the regular season. But then someone else could argue and say, oh, well, this is the playoffs. This is completely different. So let me get your thoughts on that whole process and where you lean on that, because I think that's something very interesting that we need to discuss.
Yeah, I think the regular season, the schedule worked so weird between these two teams that there's not much you can really take away. Just because so many of them were on second nights of back-to-back. It just didn't make sense. That schedule, really weird. You can maybe look within the game and find some stuff that might happen, like how the two teams played against each other in certain stretches. But overall, the third period failures from the Stars were generally because of the lack of rest in the second night of back-to-back. And the fact that they were able to pull one off at the end of the season is actually kind of shocking, more than anything, more than just the Stars being upset at a failure behind the Avalanche.
Yeah,
what are you going to say, James?
The other thing that I'll point out with the games against the Avalanche, only one of those games was with Chris Tanev in the lineup, and we won that game. So after the trade deadline, these two teams were both very different. And the Stars only added one player, and they got that much better. We are playing Chris Tanev almost 24 minutes a night right now.
Yeah, and here's how the game, or here's how this series kind of breaks down for me. This is the number 1 and number 2 offense in the league, and the Avalanche just pulled off like one of the offensive performances of the decade in that series with the Jets. I mean, to dominate the best goalie in the league that badly was shocking. I think that has a lot to do with, I guess, the Jets finally admitting who they were, and that is not close to the skill level of the Avalanche. The Stars have the skill level to play with the Avalanche, even in a wide open series like that. But the Stars have also come off a tight defense first series with Vegas, and our goalie is playing hot now too. You could say Georgiev got better. I would not say he was great this series. I mean, he was way better than he was in the regular season, but it's pretty easy to play goalie when you have a 3-goal lead for half the game.
Constantly.
Fair.
And when the other team's flying up the ice. The only shots on goal you're getting is the Jets got into the zone, and they're going to get one on net because they got a chance now. So, honestly, the way this stacks up for me is that these are the 2 best offenses. The Stars have a better defense and better goaltending. If you want to look at it from a very high level, I think the Stars should take this. They're a better, deeper hockey team.
The big story, I feel like, is the Avalanche having that first round appearance. And I think they did outstanding in that first round. They did. I think it is just as much that the Jets just crash and burn. It's hard to beat a team 4 times in a row like that. The Stars tried to do it against the Vegas Golden Knights, and they couldn't after losing the first 2. But it's hard to beat a team 4 times like that. And it looked pedestrian. It really did.
It looked easy.
And I think that's more a fault of the Jets than a extreme victory of the Avalanche. Now, the amount by which the Avalanche beat them by, that's the Avalanche.
Yes.
That's them. But it should have been harder than that, and it wasn't.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it's going to come down to, is the Avalanche really that good? And are they going to just overwhelm the Stars with their offense the same way they did with the Jets? Because that's their only path to victory, in my opinion. I don't think the Avalanche can out-goaltend or out-defense the Stars. They're going to have to use that offense, which it is the best offense. So if anyone can do it, it's the Avalanche. But they have to use that to overwhelm the Stars to beat them in this series.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I will point out is that Arturi Lehkonen had 5 goals in that 5-game series, and he only scored 16 the entire regular season. If you think that's sustainable, you are delusional. I'm sure he'll be a part of this series just because that's how players work. They get hot, and it feels like they can't stop scoring. But a goal a game is not going to happen against this Stars team.
So let me ask you about this, because this is another talking point that I kind of want to discuss. One of the things that I was thinking about as I was preparing myself for this episode was the styles of play that both of these teams play. Okay, and let's talk about this for a second, because I think it's a really interesting conversation. When you look at the Avalanche, we just talked about it. What's their offense? Run and gun, lots of goals, and expose the defense for what it is. Okay, that's what they're good for, what they're trying to do. I would argue and say the Stars during the regular season had a very similar style. And you point to the goals for category alone. That's all you have to look at. And these teams ended number 1 and number 2. So these teams are not afraid to score goals, and they're very good at doing so, right? Here's the difference that we saw in a couple of different aspects, guys. The first thing that we saw is that the Stars proved in this game again, in this series against the Vegas Golden Knights, that they can play a different style and still beat you, right? They tried a couple of different ways to beat the Vegas Golden Knights, especially in the first 2 games. In the first game, they were trying to get all these rush chances, and Vegas was just in the right spot at the right time and got the stick in the right spot and they played very well defensively and took care of their opportunities when they had them. In game 2, the Stars tried to change a different style, and they played stupid physical. And I'm not talking about the way they did in game 7, which was the right balance of what they should have been doing. I mean, it was complete finish their check on every single shift. They weren't picking and choosing when to take those hits. As the series went along, we saw this Stars team kind of develop the way that they were doing it defensively, and they proved to Vegas that they could out Vegas the Vegas Golden Knights. Let's be honest. That's exactly what they did. And they did it with 5 defensemen, right? They took advantage of their opportunities, the ones that they did. and they kind of extinguished the opportunities of the Vegas Golden Knights and got a couple of lucky bounces at the same time, right? The question for me, which style of the Dallas Stars do we see in this series? Because if we see them go the same style that Colorado plays, I think that is a little bit of an advantage to the Colorado Avalanche because of the superstars that they have and their ability to finish off the rush with guys like McKinnon, Aaron Rantanen, and Middlestad, and apparently Nichushkin is playing ridiculous right now too, and Makar and Taves. So they've got all of these guys. Or are the Stars going to find a balance between what they did in the Vegas series and what they're going to have to do against the Colorado Avalanche, which is probably play that more loose and open kind of ability and more rush chances than what we saw in the Vegas series? I know that's a lot of explanation. I'm sorry, but you kind of have to put that in perspective, I think.
I'll tell you who we'll see because I already know, because we saw them in the last half of the season from the Stars. The Stars switched to a defensive style in the last half of the season. They were one of the best, if not the best, going down the stretch and goals against per game at the end of the season. And we saw that in the first round. I mean, the first game, Vegas puts up 4, and they couldn't get more than 2 the rest of the series.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, you see both. I mean, if the Stars can't control Colorado, I mean, which is going to happen, there's going to be games where Colorado just gets loose anyway, despite how good of a defense the Stars are playing. The Stars can play that track meet, and they can try and catch up because they can play that way, like we played the first half of the season, more offensively minded. But if they're able to lock down the top 2 lines of Colorado and keep Makar in check, I mean, I could see the Stars just taking care of this team easily too. I feel like these games are going to be there's going to be a lot less 1-goal games than we saw last series, because you can't get more than 7 1-goal games. And these offenses are so explosive on both ends, and the defense isn't as good on Colorado to keep the Stars in check, that we're going to see multiple goal leads, I believe, in this series. There's not going to be as many close ones.
And the defense of the Avs, I think, is really what's going to be key for them. If they can get their defensive act in motion, then they should win the series. But they let in, granted, it's skewed because of game 1, but 3 goals a game against a Jets team who is playing bonus hockey in the playoffs.
I think it's a little bit different for me. The way that Bones had the Jets playing is different than the way that he had the Stars playing, because I think he had more firepower in Winnipeg than when he was with the Stars, if that makes any sense. I think that's fair to say, because we did not have the same depth back in 2020 and 2021 that the Jets have now. I think that's fair to say. You can disagree with me if you want, but regardless, my big thing about this particular point is that the Stars can play at least 2 different styles, and they could play multiple different styles and still find ways to beat you.
Yes, that's what I said. Yep.
Okay. So, James, I want you to go on a rant for a little bit. Let's talk about what you were. So we were discussing this right before we started.
I'm still doing some pizza delivery right now for my job. So that leaves me with lots of free time in my car. So I decided, hey, I kind of want to know what Avalanche fans think about this series and what's going to happen. So I listened to a couple of their podcasts, and I read through a bunch of comments on those podcasts and stuff. And there is an astounding amount of As fans that think that they have the advantage in forward depth in this series. And that is absolutely delusional. I understand what y'all just did in the first round. I understand Lehkonen got 5 goals. Okay. He had 16 in the regular season. We had 9 people who had more goals than him in the regular season. Okay. Calm down. I understand the first round was crazy. You're facing a different team now.
Honestly, I know we were kind of joking on there, but that is going to be an advantage for Dallas, I think. I mean, it's a disadvantage not getting the rest. Absolutely, 100%. Stars are still going to be it's going to feel like the first series didn't end, but Vegas just beat a team really badly, and I'm sure they feel pretty good about themselves, and they're going to have to face a Stars team that just took on quite the test. And we'll see if the Avalanche the Avalanche's game is up to the spec that the Stars is at the end of that series.
The reason why it bothers me so much is because they have Joel Kiviranta, who we couldn't justify keeping on our team last year, on their third line. That was our 13th forward for like 2 or 3 years straight.
So for those of you that are watching on the YouTube side or watching on the video side, I've got it pulled up on dailyfaceoff.com, the depth chart of the forwards for the Colorado Avalanche. And honestly, they've got some depth. They do. Now, is it to the point that it's better than the Stars? And no. Obviously, their top line is better than our top line right now. Easy. All 3 players.
That's undisputed.
Easily. That's undisputed. You can't argue with that. No Stars fan can argue the fact that their top line is the best line, maybe even in the playoffs right now. You got McKinnon, Rantanen, and Shushkin on the sides. Middlestat, that was a great move by Colorado to go out there and try and put a Band-Aid on that second center line spot. Like you said, James, Lehkonen's been ridiculous. And then this one I'm a little iffy about. Zach Parise. I don't know how he's been doing, so I can't say enough about it. But what I do know is that he turned down a contract offer from the New York Islanders to go here because he saw opportunity, and he's the second line left winger, at least according to this depth chart. Then you've got Colton, Kiviranta, and Wood on the third line. You've got Trenton, Cogliano, and Duhaime, who is, if you don't remember Duhaime, he is a Minnesota Wild player, and he is going to love being in this series and try to get some retribution from when he was with the Wild last season. So that'll be interesting to see that connection there. Now, I like all of these players. I'll be honest. I like all of them.
Ryan, they look like players that you would love.
Is it the same depth as the Dallas Stars?
I would take the Stars.
Our second line has 2 captains and a 20-year-old who scored 4 goals and 3 assists in the first round.
Yeah. I would take our fourth line over their third and fourth line. So, yeah. No. The depth is not the same. And
I don't even think their second line is close, man.
I think their second line is close. And their first line is better. I think their second line is about equal.
So, looking at the Stars' depth, I don't know what the fourth line has done for the Avalanche in their series against the Winnipeg Jets, but our fourth line was enormous for us in 2 games in particular. Dellandrea got the game-winning goal, I believe, in Game 5, either Game 5 or Game 6, I forget. No, it wasn't Game 6. It had to be Game 5. Game 5, and then Rod Fox that comes in Game 7 after being hurt for 3 games or 4 games, and he gets the game-winning goal in Game 7. So, knowing that, and not knowing how the fourth line did for the Avalanche, I would still argue that our fourth line is incredible compared to the Avalanche. And then even if you could just get some of these guys going, like Duchesne and Sagan were virtually invisible in that series against the Vegas Golden Knights, and it's not like they didn't have their chances. They had their chances. They just didn't score. Dodonov was very good in the role he was asked to be in, and
He had 2
he's kind of
goals.
playing up the lineup because of the injury to Marchment. And then we still have guys who are still not getting going on these top 2 lines. I mean, Pavelski didn't have a goal in the series. Rope
Didn't have a
Hintz
point.
had 1 goal in the series. He had a huge play at the end of the 4th game, and he blocked a giant shot and got the empty netter.
And
But
that was his only point.
that was his only point. So I would still, if we can get Hintz, Pavelski, and Duchesne and Sagan going,
One or two of
they
those
don't stand
dudes. We don't even need all of them. 1 or 2.
You just need one. You really honestly just need one. If Hintz could get going with Stankoven and Robertson on his wings, that line is scary good. Scary good. And they don't stand a chance against the Stars' depth. The Avs don't. So I'm with you, James. I like the word you used. Delusional. I'm not trying to diminish, Colorado Avalanche fans. But did you watch the series? Are you looking at the lines? Are you looking at the fact that we had 9 20 goal scorers? That no other team had 7. So
the Avalanche have an edge in a lot of stats. Forward depth is the one that you cannot argue on that one, okay? That is the only one that I will firmly stand on, and I will die on that hill. The Stars have better depth than the Colorado Avalanche, okay? It's not a question for me.
When you look at the remaining 4 teams in the Western Conference, the Stars have the best forward depth remaining. The Oilers have never had depth because they can't find guys to play with their 2 superstars. You look at Vancouver. Vancouver has just had a good year this year. And then on the flip side, on the other side with the Avs have been trying to find a second center spot guy for a long time now, since Nazem Kadri went to Calgary. So this is something that Jim Nill specifically went out and did after they lost to the Vegas Golden Knights. He looked at the depth that the Vegas Golden Knights had and both their forward depth and their defensive depth. He fixed it in the trade deadline with Tanev and on the defensive side, and he took care of it in free agency on the forward side. So I don't see how you could argue that anybody in the Western Conference remaining has better depth than the Dallas Stars. There's only one other team that probably had similar depth, and we beat them just in the last series. That's my argument. I believe that 100%.
Yep.
So, okay. Let's talk about
those Avalanche podcasts were still really good. I enjoyed them. Just delusional on that one point, okay? That one point, I will die on that hill, man. So,
delusional, but still good, right?
Yes, they were good. I enjoyed the podcasts.
Okay, good. It's good to know there's some good content out there. All right. So let's talk about the defense for a second, and then also the goaltending. But let's discuss the goaltending first, because this could be very, very critical for the Stars. Looking at it on paper and looking at the way that both goalies ended the season, and I would even argue in the way the series went for both of these goalies going through their first round series, I think the Stars have a huge advantage in this particular category. And you have to look at the way that both goalies played, and you have to look at the way that both goalies responded. Now, Georgiev responded very well after that Game 1 loss to the Jets. He absolutely sucked it up. That first game was terrible. Like, both goalies were terrible. And believe it or not, and it seems crazy to say this, but he was the better goalie in the series. And Connor Hellebuck is probably going to win the Vezina, in my opinion, this year. But when you look at Ottinger and what Otter did in the series, the thing you have to see for these goalies is you have to see them progress and get better as the series goes along. And I would say that Ottinger's difference between the way he started and the way he ended the series is a bigger growth than what we saw Georgiev do in his first round series. Fair? Not fair? What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Otter had probably as tough a time as you could have in goaltending position in those tight 1-goal games where one slip up is the difference in the game, and he was able to lock it down those last 5 games. He was dominant, unstoppable, doing everything he needed to.
The big thing with Otter is that third period stat. In the entirety of third period and beyond, he let in 1 goal the entire series. It was a 7-game series. He let in 1 third period goal.
That's crazy that's what he did throughout the series. And it was, what was the goal he gave up?
It was the 2-0 game 6, man. It was the one that went off a Suter's stick and went top corner.
And even then, that was just 1 goal. So,
but I think Otter's going to be the biggest difference maker in this 2 series. When you look at gaps between skill between these 2 teams, that's the biggest one in my opinion. Is starting goaltender. Georgiev versus Otter is a mismatch, a huge mismatch. And while Otter did play solid in this Vegas series, he didn't have a mind-numbing stolen game like Logan Thompson did in Game 3.
And then Hill in Game 6.
And Hill in Game 6. I mean, I think we're still waiting to see even another level from Otter. That was just Otter playing solid, making the saves he needed to. We can still see some ridiculous Otter, especially when there's more consistent offensive chances for the other side probably as well.
Yeah, man, if Otter feels the way he's playing right now is exactly what we didn't get last year. It is the confident Otter who is in the right spot, is punching the puck out of the zone with his blocker and flipping the puck to the faceoff dot after every stop.
All right, and then moving on from goaltending here, let's take a look at the defensive pairings that we're probably going to see in this series, and let's look at the Colorado Avalanche first. So obviously you've got I love Miro to death. Cale Makar is the best defenseman in the NHL. He is, and I hate saying that because he's such a good player and he doesn't play for the Stars. But what Cale Makar does for the Colorado Avalanche is bar none what any other defenseman does for their team. So you've got Makar and Taves together. You got Sam Girard and Josh Manson. That's an excellent second pairing. And then their third pairing of Jack Johnson and Sean Walker. That again, that's a very, very good top 6 for these Colorado Avalanche. So, guys, taking a look at these pairings, what's y'all's thoughts on these pairings and how it might compare to the Stars?
Yeah, we talk about how good the Stars' top 5 defensemen have been. Well, the Colorado Avalanche have the same thing, but they have 1 more. That is a great blue line core. I think that's probably one of the deepest ones.
I think that their D-core is better for offense. I think our D-core has been way better for defense. Honestly, it's for me, if I'm ranking those all the defensemen together, I'd take I'm tier listing them more. Okay, so Makar gets his own tier, right?
The Makar
and
tier.
Then the Makar tier, that's sure. And then you have Miro, I'd throw Harley and Taves into the next tier. And then you have Lindell, Suter, and Tanev in the next tier with I can't remember the Avalanche's second pairing.
Manson and Girard.
And then their third pairing is probably one below Manson and Girard. And then Nils is all the way down at the bottom by himself.
Huh.
And that's kind of how I think the high-end talent is heavily in favor of the Avalanche on this side. But in terms of solid defensive play, I think it heavily is favored in the Stars.
I feel like I wouldn't say lack of defense because it's not like Colorado has been a bad defensive team, but the not focus on defense, I guess, is due to just the play style that the Avs have decided to play with this year, and that's to gear more offensively. I think if this team decided to focus on defense the way Dallas did in the second half of the season, like you mentioned, James, I think they could have done the exact same thing that the Stars did. That's just not the way that they play. So I I'm honestly in disagreement with you, James. I think this blue line core could play the same way in a better fashion than what the Stars do. I think their talent is higher. But defensively, they just don't play that same defensive style that the Stars do.
I just think that it favors the Stars in that way. Not all of them are ridiculously puck handling defensemen.
All right. So one of the things we have to talk about, and James and I very briefly talked about it in the last episode in the game against the Golden Knights in Game 7, but it's exhausting for me because I'm tired of talking about it, but it has to be a topic of conversation. It has to be. And that's the fact that the Stars are running with 5 defensemen right now. Who's the odd man out right now? Nils Lundqvist. So he was very close to being the reason why the Stars lost the series. That very easily could have gone the opposite way. It was the wrong mistake to make at the exact wrong time. And if it wasn't for that fourth line going out there and getting the goal that they did so early on in the third period, that third period could have been very much different. And he has been given so many stinking opportunities with just what he's been given. And he has only been playing 3, 4, sometimes even 2.5 minutes a night. And I don't know how much he played in Game 7, but I bet you it was less than 6. He gets limited minutes, and he still makes the biggest mistake in the game. Still makes the absolute biggest mistake in the game. And me included, and those who had been Nils stands trying to get him to stay in the lineup, finally lamented, and even further than what we had, and said he cannot play in the series against the Colorado Avalanche. And I know I'm already hearing Ardell in my head right now. That this matchup against Colorado is a better matchup for Nils Lundqvist. And I think that's fair to say that it is a better matchup for him than against the Vegas Golden Knights. He is a skate first guy. He is a skill guy. And you can't trust him. You can't trust him even in limited minutes. And you've got so many other options in like 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 different guys who could do better than Nils Lundqvist is doing right now. Now, I say all of that to bring up this comment here, and that's what I was trying to do on my phone. I was trying to find the comment, and he was asked after Game 7.
Pete DeBoer was asked.
Thank you, Chris. For those of you listening on the audio side, Pete DeBoer was asked about, is Nils Lundqvist really the best option as the 6th defenseman for the Dallas Stars? And he said, right now, yes. And I couldn't remember the rest of the comment, but maybe one of y'all can find it for me in the chat, because I tried to find it on X. But I don't agree with that. And I'm not going to say that I'm smarter than Pete DeBoer, because obviously I'm not. It's just hard for me to believe him that one of these other guys, and Pouliot or Petrovic or Bichel, which excites me a lot, or even Gavin Bayreuther, could come up and do a better job than Nils Lundqvist right now. So where do y'all stand on that? I'm not going to question Pete DeBoer because he's 8-0 in Game 7s and seems to know what he's doing with the defensive core playing a 5-man rotation. But the reason why I'm scared about him continuing this is because I don't think that this is, and I know, James, you disagree with me, I don't think this is going to be able to be kept up for another 3 rounds, if that's what the Stars are looking at. So I know that's a lot. Wait, tell me your thoughts. Sorry.
Yeah. I tend to disagree with DeBoer too. I think Pouliot could do exactly what Lundqvist is doing just fine. I think any defenseman could do what Lundqvist is doing. Play 3 minutes and get scored on every other game. That's not hard to do. So I think there are other options, but I just think he would rather go with the devil he knows than the devil he doesn't know at this point. So he knows Lundqvist can screw up in those situations, and he's got to get himself he's got to put Lundqvist into situations if he's going to have to play him in situations where he's not going to burn the team like he did. So while absolutely 100% bad play by Lundqvist on that, why is he on the ice in that point of the game as well against those guys? I mean, it had to be because everyone was just totally gassed. But
trying to give him a break, man. I mean, he's trying to give him a chance,
and
he's just failing. I think I don't know how many shifts he took in that second period, but that had to have been at most he took two. At most he took two, and that was probably his only shift.
And yet, that's the handcuff that DeBoer's going with. He's saying, all right, we're playing 5, and we're putting Lundqvist in when we have to. He needs to work around it better. I mean, he put the handcuff on himself. He's got to find a way to put Lundqvist in where it's not going to hurt the team. And it hurt him twice in this series when he was only playing 4 minutes. So,
really,
yes, Lundqvist needs to play better, but DeBoer needs to figure out a way to work around it.
I think kind of what more of this is coming down to, the more I think about it, is that if one of the other five get hurt right now, do you want Pouliot or Petrovic playing like 16 minutes instead of Nils playing 16 minutes?
Probably not.
And yeah, and that's where I'm at. Nils can play 15 minutes a night if he absolutely has to. Will he get scored on? Absolutely, he will get scored on. Okay. He also still, even in the limited minutes he had, there were times where he had good offensive chances. Okay. It's still there in him. He makes smart plays in the offensive zone most of the time. Sometimes the shots from the point get him in trouble, but the offensive side of Nils is still a bigger threat than if you throw Petrovic or Pouliot out there.
But see, I feel like with those guys, you know exactly what you're getting. And this is not the time to be trying out things unless you absolutely have to. And I just do not see a world where keeping Nils Lundqvist in the lineup is going to get you to the Stanley Cup final without running your 5 defensemen into the ground. And that's what I'm worried about. This first series, we already saw these guys are exhausted. And I know we can always be like, oh, well, we can just ride them all the way through. I don't think that is conducive to a Stanley Cup contender.
I just disagree with you on that point, though. All 5 of these players who we have that are playing this much, they're all playing 20 minutes a night. All of them have done it before. All of them are comfortable playing that much minutes a night. And they have done it spectacularly in that first round. I mean, truly, they all played out of their minds in that first round series. And I don't see a reason why that can't continue unless one of them gets hurt. That is the one stipulation. If one gets hurt, then the Stars are in deep, deep trouble. But
yeah,
if they don't get hurt, they can play 20 minutes a night. All 5 of them can do that. All 5 of them. And I feel confident in 5 of them playing on the ice for 20 minutes a night too.
And you go look at the Avs time on ice for their defensemen. Their top defensemen are playing the same amount of ice time as our top defensemen are. It's just our 3 and 4 or our 4 and 5 defensemen are playing more than their 4 and 5 defensemen. So in that first game, which is the one I'm going to go with since it was the one that was closest, so that's probably, their ideal if they have to down the stretch, Makar had 25-30, Taves 23-03, Walker 23-15. That's the same as our top 3 is what they're doing right now pretty much. So I don't think it's unsustainable whenever between those 5 guys it's spread out the way it is right now. I think that's the only way it could work. But also the other thing we're not thinking about is we're probably seeing a Yanni Hakanpää in this series if it goes even just a little bit.
Please.
And that would be the biggest relief if he can help even a little bit. I mean, a bad Yanni Hakanpää can play 8 minutes a night.
It is so funny how the narrative changes with certain players. You remember when, like at the end of the season, we were talking about Yanni needs to be off the ice and doesn't need to ever play again as the 6th defenseman. He needs to be scratched. And now we're praying and hoping that he comes back just to play 8 minutes a night.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I've ever seen a player's confidence get destroyed as severely as Nils Lundqvist. I mean, that is a player that just collapsed.
Can't handle it.
2 years in a row collapsed. Insane.
He just breaks under pressure all the time. Doesn't even matter. Regular season pressure, he cracks under.
Well, and the thing that really ruins Lundqvist more than anything is Miro Heiskanen and Thomas Harley. And let me explain it. He doesn't play special teams. He doesn't. You cannot trust him in penalty kill. You cannot trust him in penalty kill. And then, on the power play, which is probably where he'd be fairly decent, there are two guys, maybe even multiple guys. I would even think maybe Essa would be an option before Nils Lundqvist on the power play if Miro or Harley went down and they needed a shift off after playing a minute 30 on the power play or whatever. But he's not making himself useful in other categories, which is why he's so frustrating. You have Yanni Hakanpää in the lineup. This guy was one of the top minute munchers on the penalty kill, and absolutely we could use somebody like that. Can you imagine having Essa and Tanev and then Suter and Hakanpää as your first unit and your second unit for your defensemen? Dude, that great, fantastic. And then throw in Harley every once in a while if one of the other guys is tired. Dude, that's fantastic. You could absolutely do that.
We forget Lundqvist started the season as the second power play unit defenseman, and he lost it in like a month. And he was given a full chance, a full college try, and he lost it. So yeah, just like everything, he's been given every chance in the world, even on special teams, to make a difference, and he hasn't been able to do it.
Okay, let's wrap it up here. Series predictions. Are we going to be Homer here? Because I feel like we're all going to be Homer here. I'm just going to say,
Homer. We're Stars podcast.
Obviously. So I hate to ask this question because I think I know the answer from all three of us. How many games? How long is it going to take?
5.
6.
7.
We did the same thing. We did the same thing at the first round. Let's go.
Those of you that are saying in 5, y'all are insane.
I can see 5.
I'm intentionally insane.
No.
Okay, I'm mad at Avs fans for thinking that they're gonna roll over this team.
Joe Baker. Joe Baker, Stars in 4.5. He's taking the betting line.
There you go. Just go right to the betting line. Don't be around it.
I just don't. I really don't see it, man. I don't see how this doesn't go 7 games just because of the ridiculous, super powered guys that they have in McKinnon, arguably the second best player in the world. Cale Makar, second best forward in the world. Cale Makar, I would argue, is one of the best players in the world. You've got Rantanen, who scored 40 or 50 goals this year. You've got Nichushkin, who comes in and he can score more goals in a single game against the Stars than he did in an entire season with the Stars when he was younger.
That team just beat a bad Jets team, though. And I think the Stars are about to prove how bad that Jets team was. I think that's definitely a possibility.
Different team. The playoffs are a different animal, man. The stats that the Stars had from the first round are going to change completely in the second round. And it's the same deal for the Avs. It's a reset button every single round.
That's why the playoffs are the best.
And then hopefully all of these narratives go away that we've been talking about on the negative side. Maybe Nils Lundqvist gets better. Maybe we see Pavelski. Shush, Chris, shush. Maybe we see Sagan and Duchesne and Pavelski get a little bit more offense on their side. And real quick, a couple of things and then we'll wrap it up here. First things first. It was interesting. I saw someone made this comment on one of our YouTube videos. I think one of the reasons why Pavelski was ineffective in the series, guys, and maybe not me, I didn't say this. I'm stealing someone else's words. The way that Vegas was playing defense, there wasn't a lot of pucks that were getting through. And what does Pavelski do the best? He's a net front and he's a tip guy. And if those shots are not getting through, then that makes him ineffective. in this series against the Colorado Avalanche, we could see that be a little bit more effective than he was in the series against Vegas. Maybe just like we were saying that the matchup for Nils Lundkvist was bad against the Vegas Golden Knights. Maybe it was the same thing with Joe Pavelski. And that makes some sense to me.
There will definitely be more space in the slot.
And then last thing I did want to mention, and speaking of Rick Bowness, I don't know if you guys saw the news here today. Rick Bowness officially announced his retirement from the NHL as a coach, as a player, as everything. He's done. And I know we gave him so much crap while he was here, but one of the things we consistently said about him and what everybody who has ever known him has said is how great of a person he was. And he's like the hockey grandpa. In my mind, he is the hockey grandpa. Everybody loves him. No one has anything bad to say about him. And he just makes everybody feel so much better about themselves when he's around. I mean, let's give him credit for what he did. He went into that toxic Winnipeg Jets locker room and made some immediate changes.
That was a team that we thought everyone was leaving. We thought that team was a yard sale.
Yeah, I mean, and they came back, and I know they had a rough series against the Colorado Avalanche, and I know that's what people are going to play what people are going to talk about. But he went in and he cleaned it up. It was fantastic. And you know what? He did the exact same thing when the Stars had an issue with Jim Montgomery, when they had to fire him for his alcoholic abuse and everything that went down there. He did fantastic, and he probably did better than any other coach I think could have done in that situation.
Yeah.
So
I think it's definitely coach of the year. He got the nominee. He definitely deserves that. I can't, it's hard to make an argument for him not to get it. I mean, like James said, this team was in shambles in the offseason, and to take it from what it was to, I mean, say what you will about their play style, they were a lock in the playoffs. This wasn't a bubble team. This is a team that legitimately could have won the division still. And he took it from where it was in the offseason to that. That's crazy impressive. A lot of that goes to the coach, in my opinion.
Do you think he makes it into the Hockey Hall of Fame? Because I think just for the sheer amount of
just for the
games
amount of time he was with the
he
NHL,
coached he coached in 5 different decades, guys. And that's he was playing hockey like he was a player in the 70s.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's ridiculous. Just for the sheer amount of games he coached. And I know he doesn't have a fantastic record, but he deserves it.
It'd be interesting to see what percentage of NHL seasons he was a part of as a player and or coach.
Yeah, that would be so
high.
interesting. That would be so interesting to see. So okay, guys. Anything else? We're approaching over an hour at this point. So
this series should be a lot more high scoring, high event than the Vegas one. Should be a lot of fun.
Chris, final words?
Stars in 6.
How did I know you were going to say that? Thank you guys for those of you who have been listening along. We had 94 up at the highest here this evening. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate all the support from you guys. There's even more of you who are listening afterwards. As always, we appreciate you guys as well. We don't take this for granted. We're exploding at this point, and we have a lot of exciting things for us going on for us right now. And seriously, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much. We never thought that, 3 brothers who care more about hockey than the Cowboys in Texas would get this kind of traction, and people would be glued in their ears listening to us. We really appreciate it. Thank you to DraftKings Sportsbook as always. Go and use that promo code THPN. Click like and subscribe if you're watching here on YouTube. If you're listening on the audio side, please consider leaving us a 5-star review anywhere you listen to your podcast. SarcasticRemarks.com is the website. It's the first place you can listen to the episode after it is available. And alongside my brother Chris and my brother James, we will catch you guys on the flip side, and hope you guys have a good, fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you guys are listening. Chris, I know you missed it, but can you give us a GG boys anyways?
Stupid dragon. GG boys.
Mm-hmm.